The whining, the complaining, the griping, anger, none of it matters unless I execute consistently with the mindset of this thing is going to work. This has to happen. If it is to be, it's up to me. If it's to be, it's up to you. So what are you going to do? This is the Coins, Cashflow, and Conversations podcast. I am your host, Dakota Grady. Welcome to the podcast, y'all. Today we're celebrating 4 years of podcasting. Actually, 4 years on July 28th of this year, 2024. And I'm also celebrating 4 years of being a solopreneur. That means being an entrepreneur. So kudos to me, woohoo, y'all. So today we're gonna talk about what are the 3 keys that have helped me be in business for 4 years and also podcasting for 4 years too. We're gonna dive right into the conversation and let's start. First, let me give some backstory. So my accounting tax business started in March 2020, actually April of 2020. I lost my job during the pandemic during March. So one day my boss came into the office. He usually said something to me, but this day he went to the office, closed the door. So I thought that was weird. Later that day, I was working and I was asking my coworkers questions and they weren't really responding. Then later that morning, my supervisor and the owner came to the office and they fired me. Well, I had been putting tools in my belt because I had been doing accounting and taxes since 2012. It was 2020, so I had 8 years of experience working for other companies, getting skills to start my own business. At that point, I had lost 4 jobs, y'all, and I was tired, busted, and disgusted. Gladly, my wife, she was my support system. She was my cheerleader, and she encouraged me to start my business. I had started the business, an accounting and tax business before, but I wasn't experienced enough like I was at that point during the pandemic. In April of 2020, I started my business. My first couple of clients in South Carolina, had one in Tennessee, and it has grown since then. But now I have clients in Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina, Georgia, Indiana, and also Pennsylvania. I didn't give up. It's challenging, but the keys I'm going to talk about today have helped me to stay in the game and not throw in the towel. The podcast, the Your Money Hour podcast was my original podcast, started during the pandemic as well. It actually started July 28th of 2020. A couple of friends of mine encouraged me to start a podcast. First one, shout out to Jason Alexander. He's a financial coach in Atlanta, Georgia. He told me about Anchor, which was new to me because I hadn't heard about it, I don't think, at the time. He encouraged me to start a podcast, but I was reluctant because I was afraid that I wouldn't have enough content. So I put it off. Then I talked to a friend of mine, Dakota Grady. He actually is in Nashville, Tennessee. He encouraged me to start a podcast after we did my first episode on his podcast talking about personal finance, and I shared my story with him as well. So I bought my first Yeti mic behind me, plugged it into my laptop with a really bad camera. I recorded my first episode of the podcast, the Your Money Hour podcast. Fast forward to last year, I rebranded the podcast from the Your Money Hour podcast to the Coins, Cashflow, and Conversations podcast, which you listen to now. My podcast is listened to in different countries. I think up to like maybe 19 countries, I believe, including the US, Georgia, Germany, Africa, Ireland. Shout out to all you all who listen to the podcast and support me. Thank y'all for your time, because I know it's very valuable. So what are the 3 keys that have helped me to be in business for 4 years and to have been podcasting for 4 years too? I've done over 160 podcast episodes, including solo and interviews of different entrepreneurs and people who want to add value to the world. So the first key to longevity in podcasting and entrepreneurship, in my opinion, is mindset. It's hard, y'all, on the yard, as they say. It's challenging, it's difficult. You're dealing with people, you're dealing with yourself, feeling that sometimes you aren't up to the task of putting out an episode. You put out an episode, no one listens to it. Or you put out a new product or service and it flops. You have a bad review by a client. Although you did your best to serve him or her, you still got a bad review. You lost your temper at your client because of something that was a bad communication or a miscommunication between you and your client, and you blew it. Or maybe you won a deal, you got a referral from someone, and next thing you know, your referrals dry up. Or you're making phone calls, sending emails, text messages, DM, direct messages. You're speaking, coaching people. You're doing courses, you're learning courses. You create your own courses. You're doing all these things, the billboards, TV, radio, and you still aren't reaching the masses like you want to. That's my reality, y'all. That's my life as an entrepreneur. Again, it's difficult, it's challenging, but my mindset is, I think it'd be worth it if I continue to push and push and push, because I believe that I have something inside of me. I've created a business with products and services, and also have a voice that people need to hear. Yes, I'm talking about personal finances and business through accounting and taxes, that is. But there are other people who are doing it too. So should I not talk about those things, accounting and taxes and personal finances? No, I should, because people are going to resonate with me for who I am and what I bring to the table, right? They're going to resonate with me the way I bring the heat, the way I talk, the way I enunciate, the way I say things, my personality, my laughing, this is my kindness, but my authenticity, my showing up, putting in the work to let people know that I have value that I want to add to the world and not be afraid, or if I am afraid, to do it anyway. Yes, this thing is hard, it's difficult, it's challenging, it is scary, but I heard that the richest place in the world is a cemetery. Why? And I'll talk about that later, but keep that in mind. So the first one is the mindset of you're going to do something on a big scale to make your dreams become a reality. That's right, make it become a reality. And secondly, consistency. I started my podcasting doing an episode once a month. And I've been consistent by doing it once a month. Then I went now to, I do a podcast every week, every Thursday I do a podcast. And the consistency is important because I'm showing up for my community, for the people who follow me. They expect me to do a podcast every Thursday at a certain time. I show up on social media at least once a day, adding value to people, whether it be a video or it be a still post about money and business or parenting or marriage or whatever it may be, to encourage people to either buy a product or service or just encourage them to be who they are, reach their dreams and goals. But I do it with consistency. If you want a great marriage, lose weight, build wealth, or do anything worthwhile, you must be consistent. Putting in the work on a regular basis, and even at a certain time, showing up, putting in the effort to make your dream become a reality, because without those things, without the consistency, without the mindset, I wouldn't be in business for 4 years. I wouldn't have a podcast that's listened to as a global podcast without the consistency. What about you? Are you going to be consistent? Are you going to have the mindset? And the third key, I believe this is the key that really unlocks the potential. Having a mindset is good. Awesome. You're going to be consistent, right? The third key is execution. Earlier I mentioned that the graveyard, I heard, is the richest place in the world because people have died because they were afraid to talk, to speak, to coach, to write the book. They were afraid to execute the idea, the dream, the desire they have in their hearts. They were afraid to fail. They were afraid of rejection. They were just scared to show up real, authentic, raw, and relative because they were afraid someone would laugh at them or that it would flop. Ladies and gentlemen, I've done so many things that haven't worked before. I got discouraged. I've cried at night. I've gotten so upset, wanted to quit. I've screamed. I prayed. I worked. I've done so many things. But my dream, my vision is so big, it's going to require of me so much work, so much activity that the whining, the complaining, the griping, anger, none of it matters unless I execute consistently with the mindset of this thing is going to work. This has to happen. If it is to be, it's up to me. If it's to be, it's up to you. So what are you going to do? Are you going to change your mindset? Are you going to be consistent? And are you going to execute the plan that God gave you to execute? God gave you the plan. He gave you the promise, but he gave you the process, which includes the execution. I'm talking to me too, y'all, because this thing with podcasting and having a business, they're hard. They're difficult, but life's hard. So do it. Do it anyway. Do it afraid. Do it beat up. Do it hurt. Do it bloody. Do it whatever. Just do the thing. Execute the plan. You got this. We got this. So being in the business 4 years and podcasting 4 years has taught me to keep on grinding, keep on gritting out, keep on putting in the work, and eventually over time, with God's blessing and my hard work, it'll become a reality. But if you don't have the mindset of great things, big dreams and goals, if you aren't going to be consistent, and if you aren't going to put in the work to make it happen, your dreams won't become a reality. They'll stay a dream. That book behind me, that journal behind me, those two things were once ideas. Now they're physical assets that I can sell that can add value to people. Oh, by the way, my book is available online at dakotagrady.com. Get your copy of it. But the whole point is I want to encourage you today to live your dreams, push for them, don't give up. Yes, life is hard, but having a job is hard. Having a business is hard. Choose your heart and then take action, execute. Let's make it happen, y'all. So this is the Coins, Cashflow, and Conversations podcast. I am your host, Dakota Grady. Please like, share, comment, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. I hope this is beneficial to you. My goal is to reach 1 million people, to help them start and grow businesses, to increase their income so that they can become debt-free and live a life of abundance. If that is you, send me an email at dakota@dakotagrady.com, and we're going to create something for you to help you to move toward getting more income so you can create more impact and influence to live a life of debt-free and abundance. Thank y'all for joining me for the Coins, Cashflow, and Conversations podcast.